Have you ever experienced something so strange, so bizarre, so utterly inexplainable that it made you question reality? Welcome to Glitches in the Matrix, the podcast where I share stories from people who've encountered seemingly impossible events that shatter their sense of what is real. Now, did these stories happen? That's for you to decide here on Glitches in the Matrix. Ordering at McDonald's by Jordan Taylor. When I was in college, I pulled up to a McDonald's and I went inside and I went up to the counter and ordered a double cheeseburger. The cashier looked at me like I was an idiot and said, "We don't have those here." I continued to stare at her in complete shock because I was like, what, are we in the Twilight Zone or something? And since when does McDonald's not have cheeseburgers? I slowly said, "You don't have those." She said no and pointed at the menu. I look up and I was at Arby's. I was honestly shaken up by the whole experience because I was absolutely positive that I had stopped at a McDonald's. I don't even like Arby's. There was no McDonald's around, just a single Arby's on a road that I don't ever go down. I saw a McDonald's, I stopped, I went in, and it turned into an Arby's. I don't know if it was my mind glitching out on me or not, but it was really bizarre. A not-so-normal trip to the mall by Familiar Control. Last year, my husband and I went to the mall on a Saturday. We were going to go to Dillard's for some much-needed retail therapy. We get there, and all the outside doors to Dillard's were boarded up and had closed, spray-painted on the wood. Now, this mall has dual entrances to Dillard's. They have a men's and women's store, and both were boarded up. So when we get inside, we also notice the inside doors were rolled down. In any event, we ended up at a Nordstrom's. I bought some shoes and started chatting with the lady in the shoe department about Dillard's closing. A few days later, we were talking to my daughter, and she was saying how she had the weirdest encounter at the fragrance counter in the Dillard's men's store that same Saturday. The lady behind the counter was totally ignoring her. She kept trying to get assistance from another adjacent department, but nobody would acknowledge her presence. She said they were acting like non-player characters in a video game, just moving back and forth. So she left the store and went down to Macy's for the fragrance she was looking for. My husband and I got curious, and we were asking her what time she was there and if she was sure it was Saturday. She had the receipt for her fragrance purchase, and I had my receipt as well. We were approximately there at the same time on the same day. The only difference was the doors were boarded up for us and not for her. Later that weekend, I go back to the mall, and Dillard's isn't boarded up, so I went inside. And while I was making my purchase, I asked two separate people why they boarded up the doors Saturday. But they both looked at me like I have turnips growing out of my ears. And they both said, "We were open, business is normal." Have you ever had a glitch in the Matrix happen to you? If so, I'd love to hear about it. You can head on over to paranormalitymag.com. That's paranormalitymag.com to share your glitch in the Matrix story. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe. And now back to the Matrix. My husband thinks we both died by TheCurvedWritingDesk. Back when my husband and I were dating, my husband was in a terrible car crash. His truck hit black ice and slid into oncoming traffic. The truck was completely totaled, and so was the other truck he hit. The weird thing is, though, both he and the other guy were completely fine. No scratches on them. All my husband had was a bruised knee. The first responder was baffled, and so was the towing company and the insurance agency when they realized no one had died or been severely injured. Now, fast forward a few days after the crash. My husband comes over to my apartment, and we're having a conversation about a class we were both in. And he casually asked me when I got the flat screen TV that was sitting on my dresser. And at this point, I was really confused because I've had that little flat screen since I was 13. and I'd had it the entire year and a bit that we'd been dating. He told me to quit pulling his leg and asked me what I did with my old tube TV. I had no idea what he was talking about, and I let him know that. He was convinced that I had a tube TV. I proceeded to get on Facebook and showed him a picture that we had taken 2 weeks prior. The TV in the background, it's a flat screen in the picture. My husband goes white, like he's seen a ghost, and just stares off into space for a minute. His eyes started to water. I asked him what's going on, and he said, "I swear to God I'm not crazy. You've had a tube TV since we started dating. It was a tube TV when we took the picture." Now I brushed it off as his head being a little bit rattled from the accident, and he didn't bring it up again. However, anytime we hung out in my room, he'd always look at that TV weird. Fast forward 7 years. My husband and I have been married for a few years now, and we're deciding we're ready to be parents. I'm not on birth control, and we decided whatever happens, happens. We're not actively trying, but we're also not actively trying to prevent it either. So we're on vacation in Italy, wandering around Rome, and I feel like crap. I had had my period the week before, and it was the worst one that I had had in my entire life. And as we were walking around, I'm suffering from back pains, chills, horrific cramping. I go to the bathroom in a cafe and I hurl my guts out. I have diarrhea, and I realize that I'm menstruating heavily. Now, obviously, I'm weirded out by this since I had had my period the week before. I clean myself up and I go back out to tell my husband that I need a doctor. Now, I have a pretty high pain tolerance, but this is getting insane. It's getting to the point to where I'm having trouble walking, and I'm starting to feel pain in my shoulders. I don't want to ruin our vacation, but I'm starting to really get worried. Now, my husband sees the state I'm in. He notices that I'm visibly paler than when I went into the bathroom, so he goes to get help. And 20 minutes later, I'm on a stretcher being taken to the hospital. An hour after that, I'm being prepped for emergency surgery, as the doctors tell me I have a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. And if he doesn't perform surgery, I'm gonna die. 6 hours later, I wake up very sore and tired. The doctor tells me that I'm very lucky, and that if I had waited any longer to seek medical attention, I'd be dead. My husband stays with me in the hospital for the first night, and then gets a hotel for the rest of the stay. A week later, we're cleared to fly home, and I go through a grueling month of healing from the surgery. 2 months after our return, somehow me and my husband get on the topic of fires, and he goes on about the dangers of kitchen fires, and I say, "No need to worry. We're all set. The fire extinguishers are in the closet." He looks at me like I have 3 heads and asks me what I'm talking about. So I remind him about the fire extinguisher in the front closet where we keep the coats. We've had him there for 3 years. He insisted we buy one when we bought our house. My husband shakes his head and tells me he has no idea what I'm talking about, and we don't have any fire extinguishers. I reminded him about the memories of fighting about if we really needed one, where to put it, and then buying it from Home Depot, but also installing it on the wall in the closet. He looks at me with confusion and tells me none of that happened. I get up and go to the front closet to show him, all the while cursing him for being an asshole for forgetting our 2-week fight about it. And lo and behold, no fire extinguisher. Not only is there no fire extinguisher, there's no holes in the wall where I know we installed it, no fresh paint. This wall had never been touched. I insist he moved it and fixed the wall and ask, "Why the heck are you playing such a stupid prank?" He continues to insist that we never had one, let alone talked about getting one. This goes on for several minutes, and I'm approaching hysterics, telling him to quit playing games with me, and he finally says, "Now you know how I feel about that TV." We didn't speak about it for a long time, and the next time it was brought up, he had this theory that perhaps in another timeline, dimension, whatever you call it, we both actually died and reset like in a video game. And the TV and the fire extinguisher were just glitches. I don't know if I agree with him, All I know is that I've never seemed so rattled in my entire life. And every time I go to get something out of the closet, I'm overwhelmed with the feeling of wrongness. I know it should be there, but somehow it's just not. I can't explain it. And he says he's going to go to the grave swearing I had a tube TV. Thank you for listening to Glitches in the Matrix, presented by Paranormality Magazine, your number one source for anything strange and unusual. Visit our website at paranormalitymag.com. And until next time, the world isn't always what it seems.